Hello and welcome back everybody to this new episode of our own Fireside Chat from Deltatre Innovation Lab. Today we'll talk about Metaverse and Omniverse with a special guest. We have Mario Viviani directly from NVIDIA. Welcome, Mario.
Hey, Gianni. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. So, should I introduce myself and say a few words? Yeah, of course. Thank you. So, hey, everyone. My name is Mario Viviani, and I run developer relations for NVIDIA. And I'm part of the NVIDIA Omniverse team, which is, again, a new, very exciting product that we have launched. And within Omniverse, I take care of the developer experience. In particular, I work with partners and developers all around the world to add more functionalities and more features to Omniverse. And today we'll talk a little bit about that and how does that impact the Metaverse as well, which is on everyone's mouth. And a few words about myself before joining NVIDIA. I've been with Amazon for about 7 years, working in the apps and game space. And I'm a developer, technical person myself. I've been, developing for many years, and I still do a lot of hands-on coding and creating a lot of samples and working with our technical counterparts, with our developers. So, I'm a geek by nature, and of course I'm also Italian, which also helps with evangelizing and speaking, because I as you will learn very soon, I can't stop talking.
Yeah, thank you. so you are the right person. Like me, you love have hands-on on stuff, so you are the right person to introduce us to what is the Metaverse, and then what is the NVIDIA Omniverse. So here's the stage. Feel free to go on. I just share your screen.
Amazing.
And we can start.
Thank you so much, Gianni. So, today we'll talk a little bit about Omniverse, and we will take a look from a very specific perspective, which is the perspective of developing on top of Omniverse. And as you will see in a second, there are many different ways that you can use Omniverse. You can use Omniverse as a customer, as a user of Omniverse, and use it in your to create these virtual worlds. But you can also integrate and bake your product within Omniverse. And today we're going to zero in on that part specifically. But we can't talk about Omniverse without talking about the Metaverse, which is, again, as I said before, it's a word that is on everyone's mouth. Everyone's talking about the Metaverse. Everyone is talking about what is your strategy for the Metaverse. So we need to understand a little bit, what it is. And at NVIDIA, we have a clear interpretation of what the Metaverse is, which is that we think that the Metaverse is the 3D evolution of the internet. And that's not something that is 10 years away from now. It's not something in the future. Of course, in the future, there are going to be many ways through which the Metaverse becomes accessible and many more users can use it. But the Metaverse is actually something that is already happening today. And the 3D internet is already revolutionizing every industry. So if I think about the type of partners and developers that I work with that are in the Metaverse, it goes from the industrial Metaverse, and working in things like construction, architecture, in factory development and design, media and entertainment. There are a lot of different verticals and industries that are being revolutionized today by the Metaverse. And I think that the most interesting bit is revolves around one specific concept, which is the concept of digital twin. Which is also a very, there's a lot of hype around the concept of digital twin. But I think that the interesting bit is to understand what it means to have a real digital twin. So a digital twin is when you have an actual real clone of the physical world in the virtual world, right? When you have a fully baked simulation where you have things like physics that react like the physical world. Where you have sensors in the physical world that reproduce the same behaviors in the virtual world. So And then, of course, you need to have things like rendering. You need to have AI to populate these worlds. So when the physical world and the virtual worlds collide, when there is synchronization between those two things, that's when you have what we call a live digital twin. You have a interconnection of these two worlds, and we feel that's where the magic happens, right? That's when you can start doing things like what would happen if in the real world, if this condition would happen in and we can simulate that in the digital world first. So as you can imagine, that impacts things like simulating a digital twin of a big factory. What it means if I have to move things around in the factory? Well, how does that impact my production line, for example, and how that can help me save money? So it's a great advantage if you can run that virtually before you can run that in the physical world. So of course, this is I would say easier said than done. We need tools to make that happen, right? We need a proper infrastructure to make these virtual worlds happen and to make real digital twins, right? So there are four main components that, in my opinion, that we need to have. If we think about the metaverse also as interconnection of worlds, where you have many different components, many different virtual worlds that are talking to each other, and many features coming in, you need to have standards, right? You need to have open standards that are shared across the industry, shared across different companies, and that has to be, one of the key pillars of the metaverse. You also need scalable, accelerated, precision time system. You need to be able to elaborate this enormous amount of data and to do that in a reliable way. Let's say, for example, that you have the physical world and the digital world connected by sensors. You need to have a ground truth that makes sure that everything is happening in a perfectly synchronous way, that the data that you're receiving is correct, and all of that. You need real-time, physically accurate simulation. Again, we're not talking about a video game here. We're talking about having, for example, a model of a car where you model all the components, the suspensions, the wheels, the brakes, and they need to behave exactly like they would do in the real world, right? Like gears need to rotate and move in the right way, and they're subject to gravity and to deformation as well. So we need to be able to simulate accurately. And then, of course, we need AI. AI will power these virtual worlds, will allow us to populate these virtual worlds as well. And also, more importantly, will allow us to run all these additional simulations they want to do, and to gather data and to crunch data on it as well. So as you will see in a second, synthetic data generation, for example, is incredibly important. Is what if we can simulate these virtual worlds and then take all this enormous amount of simulation and feed that to AI, and then use this AI in the real world? A great example of that is simulate self-driving cars, for example, and have we have a product at NVIDIA. It's called DriveSim, that again allows for simulation of self-driving cars and drive. It's a drive simulation by all means and purposes, and that allows to power great new experiences. So how do we get all of that to come together, right? And Omniverse wants to be an answer to this problem. So what is Omniverse? Is a computing platform for creating and operating metaverse applications. So one common misconception that I have to encounter many times is like, oh, so it's a platform to develop video games. It's like, no, it's to run simulations and metaverse world, and to build virtual worlds, and to create these digital twins, and then you can take your workflows, your features, your products, and integrate those products within Omniverse. And this allows to then enhance even more these virtual worlds and experience, right?
So meanwhile, our co-host Clemente Giorgio joined us. He was probably wondering some Omniverse-like scenario.
He was lost in the metaverse.
Lost in the metaverse, yeah.
Hey, Clemente.
Hi everyone. To be honest, I'm lost in Omniverse XR.
There you go. It's easy to get lost in a virtual world, but that's great to have you.
Yeah, I have a question related to what you're saying. So Omniverse is a 3D engine like Unreal Engine or Unity, or is more?
Great question. That was exactly what I was talking about. It does have all the features of a 3D authoring environment, right? But it is way more than that. It's an entire scalable platform that allows you to run physically accurate simulation and allows you to render things in a very accurate way as well. We have our super powerful ray traced engine in Omniverse as well. And also it's extremely flexible. So it can, as you will see in a second, it can actually connect to a lot of other tools like Unreal Engine, like Maya, like, you know, and become part of a bigger flow where you have many tools coming together connected to the Omniverse. And then, you know, each tool does what it does best, you know. So a question that I get related to, like, for example, Unreal Engine is like, should I replace Unreal Engine with Unity? And my answer is, well, probably you won't have to. You can actually keep using your Unreal Engine or, you know, 3D Studio Max based workflow and connect that to Omniverse and give your workflow superpowers through Omniverse by, you know, adding more features and more capabilities to what you're trying to achieve. So going back to Omniverse again, it all gravitates, for example, around this file format which is called USD. USD, if you never heard it before, stands for Universal Scene Description. And it's not a new format. Actually, has been created by Pixar in the 90s when they wanted to make 3D movies like Toy Story. And they created this incredibly flexible and powerful file format that allows, again, the name itself says, it allows for describing scenes, 3D scenes, right? And it's very flexible. You can add additional information to it. You can bake, additional descriptors to it, and it's an open standard as well. And that's what we and other companies that are working within the metaverse space are calling one of the formats that could be the HTML of the metaverse in a way. It's this building block on top of which everything else is built. So when it comes to Omniverse, we reason in USD. Everything is USD. And it's extremely powerful, allows us to do a lot of very cool things, as you will see in a second. So moving forward, now I wanted to the question I usually get at this point is, that all sounds great, Mario, Omniverse, the metaverse, but what it actually is, like, show us the meat, show us what Omniverse is. So I think that it's good now to maybe take a little bit of a step back and understand literally from a practical perspective, what is Omniverse and how can you build on top of NVIDIA Omniverse. So let's start maybe with talking a little bit about the architecture of Omniverse. Omniverse is the Omniverse platform has mainly 3 layers. There is the first basic layer is called Omniverse Kit. Omniverse Kit is, by all means and purposes, an SDK. It's an SDK at the core of Omniverse. Allows you to build metaverse applications. It contains all the key basic building blocks that you need, from the USD interpreter to our physics engine to Omni UI, which is our powerful UI toolkit. And also it also contains the Python interpreter. So as I'll show you in a few minutes, if USD is what we use to represent the scenes and the models in Omniverse, Python is determining how you build out the logic of Omniverse. And that actually what powers the next layer. So you use Omniverse Kit to build the next layer, which is called extensions. So you can think of extensions as the individual widgets and building blocks that go and compose bigger applications. So a good example of these are things like the content browser, or the mesh tools, or the texture tools, or the feature to import and export assets. So everything, in a way, within Omniverse is an extension. Those can be visual components and basically plugins that you activate and go and compose your UI and interface, or it can be also running in the backend and running in as background services as well. So when you have all these extensions, and there are extensions that are created by NVIDIA, there are more than 300 extensions, things again like the viewport, the 3D viewport, or the render, for example. They're made by us. You can also go and build extensions. That's actually the core of today's presentation, is the tools that you're going to integrate within Omniverse. Those are very likely going to be extensions, because those extensions allow you to connect, for example, to a cloud service, or to modify the scene. You could build an extension to move the cameras in the 3D scene and do something with it, or you could click a button and deploy models inside the scene. So all these components, they all come together to make the last layer, which is assemblies. So assemblies, as the word itself says, are an assembly of extensions, are extensions working in concert to achieve something. And there are two types of assemblies. There are what we call apps, which are applications, or fully baked applications that you can go and use. And NVIDIA creates some of those and released some of those, like Omniverse Create or Omniverse Machinima, which are what we call reference applications. And those are apps that are used for a specific use case. So, for example, Omniverse Create is a great application to make 3D scenes, and it's great for artists, for example. Machinima is instead an application that is bespoke for animators and movie makers, because it has a lot of extensions like the sequencer that allows you to stitch together different animations, or as a additional rig system that allows you to rig humanoids very easily. However, even though those are two distinct applications, Create and Machinima, they're all Omniverse. They are all based on Omniverse, which means that you can activate the same features of one into the other if you need them. And you can also build your own application. You can build your own extensions and create your applications. And those applications can run locally. And of course, you need an RTX card to run Omniverse. But now at GTC a few weeks ago, we announced that we're launching Omniverse Cloud as well, which allows you to run Omniverse not just on premise, but you can run it in the cloud service, within NVIDIA or within AWS. And at that point, your entire rendering is happening in the cloud, and you can then stream your application to the client, which unlocks a lot of different possibilities, right? Like, I think that is going to be a very exciting future when you don't really have to run on premise anymore if you don't need to, but you can demand that to the cloud. And then there is microservices, which is not less important. It's just that those are services again, so they can run in the background. They don't need an interface, so you can have them again run on your machine or on your local server. You can demand that to a cloud service or API, right? And you can have, for example, a format converter or a thumbnail generator or a batch execution of something happen within a microservice, which is still based on Kit. So it has all the niceties that I was talking before. It has access to the physics engine. It has access to the renderer if you need to. So as you can see, it's already a very scalable and powerful platform that allows you to do a a lot of different things. I would say that your imagination is the limit when it comes to what you can actually achieve with the Omniverse components.
Mario, from the developer or artist point of view, there is the opportunity to work together on the same project,
Yes.
and also it's possible to combine two different expertise. For example, I am expert in Python. Another colleague is expert in 3D contents with Maya. It's possible to work together on the same project.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you made that question, because I have the exact answer to that in a couple of slides when we will talk about how different tools can come together and connect to Omniverse. So the answer is yes, it is possible. Before we show that, I wanted to give a visual clue of what I've been just talking about for the last 5 minutes, which is, again, because when I say extensions and applications, it might not just click. So I want to give you a visual idea of what that looks like. So this is one of our reference applications. It's called Omniverse Code, which is an IDE. Basically, it's a development environment, and you can use code to create your extensions and build new integrations. And if you're familiar with any kind of 3D authoring tool like again, Unity, Unreal Engine, or Maya, or Blender, the interface will look familiar, right? You have a viewport, you have a stage manager, you have a way to import your files and assets. However, one of the core differences between Omniverse and other tools is that what you're looking at is not actually an individual piece of software. It's actually a lot of extensions running together and working in concert. So every component that you see on screen here is an extension. The viewport is a single extension. The stage manager is a single extension. The file manager is a single extension, which means that, again, going back to what I was saying before, you can also build your own extension. You can build a small integration, a small plugin that can run and connect to your service, for example. And integrate that, and it will become part of the Omniverse interface, and it will be basically indistinguishable from all the other extensions. So it allows for the integration of these additional workflows straight into Omniverse. And as you will see in this presentation, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, you can take these extensions and make them available to others as well, and publish them. And others will discover and can then integrate with your product. So let's say, for example, that you have you're distributing 3D assets which are ready for simulation, right? You can build an extension to distribute your assets straight into Omniverse, and you can then make this extension available to everyone that wants to use it. But now I want to get to the point.
Sorry, there is a question.
Yeah. Yes. There is a question from Pietro that says, can you please give us an idea of what would be the necessary skill set to leverage the full potential of the Omniverse? It's a great question, and I think that it depends on what your skill set is, and there might be many different ways through which you can leverage Omniverse. And I think that's actually the perfect segue into the next stage, which is what can you do with it? And one way is to create new models, for example, create 3D assets or create digital twins. Another one could be to build this extension. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and how you want to integrate your service within Omniverse. So you can use, let's say that, for example, you are let's use the example that I was using before. You have assets that you want to make available. So you will have probably someone in your team that is a 3D modeler, and someone in your team that is a coder and builds the plugin that you use to integrate within different 3D tools, right? And you want all of this to come together. And there are many ways to do that, but a great way to do that is actually to use what we call connectors. And that's actually my next slide. So an example here is actually a distributed team working together on the same scene. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to add additional assets like a table, a shelf, and they're all doing it from different tools. So what you have here, you have on the right-hand side, you have Omniverse, and on the left-hand side, you have Unreal Engine on top, Adobe Substance, and Maya. And they are all connected to the same USD scene that is done through a feature of Omniverse that is called Omniverse Nucleus, that gives access to the same file, to the same USD file, to multiple editors, if you will. And then there are small pieces of software, which are called Omniverse connectors, that are running in each one of these softwares. So Unreal Engine as a connector, Substance as a connector, and Maya as a connector. And what they're doing is they're all connecting to the same file, and that allows them to edit the same file in real time. So what you're seeing here is not asynchronous development. They are all at the same time creating a scene and editing the scene, which is incredibly powerful. If you have, let's say that your 3D artist is in the US, and then you have your programmers that are building a game in Unreal Engine. They are in China or in the UK. And then you have someone that is adding physics and the actual simulation in Omniverse, and those are somewhere else. You can have all of those collaborate together in real time on the same scene. There's no more need for asynchronous collaboration.
A question, but this is running in the cloud, or you were mentioning no, it's all on-prem, right? So you need the powerful hardware, but everybody's in their own machine, right?
Exactly. So each one of these tools is running on a different machine, and what is shared actually is access via server to the file. So one machine, in this case Omniverse, act as host, and everyone is then connecting to the same machine and operating. However, you can easily imagine a future where you don't even have to run the software on-prem. You can even run that on the cloud, and being everything being shared on the cloud. We're not there yet. We're just getting started, but that's definitely something that is not hypothetical. That's something that we're already doing with some selected partners, and right now it's in early preview, but it's happening already. So this is already changing how teams are differently working now on their projects, and even within NVIDIA. So we often have to create workshops or samples, and we all work together on the same scene. We were creating a sample for SIGGRAPH, which was just a couple months ago, and we all came together working on the same scene. And I'm based in London. My team is mostly based between California and Florida and in different parts of the US. And we were all working in real time on the same scene, which was incredible. And it was saving us a lot of time as well. We were all connected and talking to each other. It was like, why? Let's move this asset. Let's change the color here. Let's add some physics here as well. And here's where also the tooling parts comes in. So, for example, what if you have to, for example, scatter a certain amount of objects around the scene? You can do that manually, but it's easier done if you have an extension that's let's say the scatter extension. You click a button, you select the object that you want to scatter, and it will just scatter the object. And then you will have that immediately reflected in Unreal Engine or in Maya or wherever the scene is shared, right? So extensions and connectors can supercharge these workflows. That can really add a new level of value, and also allows you as a developer, and I think that's one of the most interesting things where I would like to maybe zero in next, is how can you make your tool and your services available to others so they can use them in this new way of working, right? Like, what's in for you as a developer to plug into Omniverse? I think that's a super important opportunity.
Indeed, the best approach to speed up the development of everything. Johnny and I, a couple of weeks ago, talked about how this approach could speed up also the process for developing games. I think that it's amazing.
Absolutely. There are many workflows that can be greatly accelerated by this, right? And yes, like game development is one of those, and the creation of digital twins and the management of digital twins is another big one. We talk about synthetic data generation or AI training. There are many different ways in which that can come alive. So again, going back to what I was saying, why should you care about publishing your tools within Omniverse? Well, hopefully now you have a better understanding of what is the opportunity for all the users of Omniverse. But you as a developer can plug into this world, can plug into this new opportunity by creating an integration within Omniverse, right? And there is already a world of individual developers using and creators using Omniverse, so you can make your extensions and features available to them. But also there is a world of enterprises that are now adopting Omniverse for their workflows. So if you have a service, if you have let's say that you have a startup, you have a cloud or AI powered service that matches very well this new concept of 3D virtual worlds and digital twins, you can integrate your features and make it available to all this new wealth of users that are going to adopt and use Omniverse in their workflows. And again, there is an individual version of Omniverse, which is full featured. Again, a question that I get often is like, oh, is the individual version of Omniverse somehow limited? No, all the features are available. The only difference is that you get only a few seats for concurrent usage. If you want more seats, you can then apply for an Omniverse Enterprise license. And with Enterprise, you get more support. You get direct support from NVIDIA. You get more seats as well, and there is access to a wealth of additional tools. You can go check it out. It's very interesting. However, one thing that I want to specify is that pretty much everything that we make available everywhere, right? Like we want to make sure that all users of Omniverse has access to pretty much the same tools. And
so it's all free. So if you want to start,
yes,
you are
as an individual is 100% free, and yes, you can just download Omniverse. You just need an RTX enabled device, so you need an RTX GPU. But apart from that, it's completely free. You can download it and start using it and start creating extensions. No limitation whatsoever.
Great.
Yeah.
No excuse.
So again, and what's in for you in also from a short-term perspective. First of all, and again, I want to go quite quick on this one because I was talking about this already. You already get access to more than 20 years of NVIDIA engineering into your products. Like you don't have to develop your own physics engine because you can leverage the physics engine that NVIDIA has invested a lot on. There is all this enormous investment coming into things like AI or our RTX render. If you haven't seen the demo from our GTC keynote, I strongly recommend to go and check out on YouTube the RTX Racer demo, which is mind-blowing because it looks like a movie, but it's actually not a rendered movie. It's a real-time rendered in real time like a video game. It's a full-blown, full-baked simulation, which is incredible to look at. So you take all of these things, the UI framework, we keep adding to it. There are so many incredible features that you can activate in your NVIDIA Omniverse extension. You can take all of these for free if you're an individual, and can just start playing with it. So that's a great way to accelerate your business because you're already sitting on a pile of great features. And then there are some additional great advantages, which is, as I said before, you connect into existing workflows, into existing apps. So connected to Omniverse, there is this wealth of other third-party tools like Unreal Engine, Maya, 3D Studio Max, and we're working literally every day to add more and more. So there is these entire sets of workflows that you can plug in, and you can make your service, your product available to these users. Exposure in product. I will show in a second what it means, because within Omniverse, we also have our own marketplace and catalog, which is called Omniverse Exchange, where we can surface, content from our partners and from developers. So that's also really good. Visibility with enterprise customers. We have, as I said before, many great companies, from Amazon, BMW, Lockheed Martin. Just very small number of examples of a huge amount of enterprise partners that we're working with, and they're using Omniverse for their workflows. And also there is co-marketing opportunities. And NVIDIA love to share. As if you follow our social media and blog, you probably know how much we like to share new tech. And we're happy to do that with all of our developers and partners that we work with. If there is a cool story, we want to tell it. So again, for example, the one that is in this slide here, it's a company called the Acceleration Agency, which is one of our partners. And what they did, which is very cool, they created a connection between Google Sheets and Google Documents and the digital twin. So you can make a change into a spreadsheet, and then that change is immediately reflected into Omniverse. And they built this extension, and we love that, and we did an entire case study on it. So again, some immediate returns so you can get just out of the box by working with Omniverse. And here's I think where a lot of probably you guys connected might want to stop and think about, which is how can you align Omniverse with your business model? Because again, there is this new huge opportunity that is coming through virtual worlds and being part of this metaverse ecosystem. And there are many angles and many verticals that can fit this new opportunity. So I already mentioned assets makers, right? Assets maker is a big opportunity. Apps and API connection. If you have an API service, an AI enhanced service, you can do that, and you will see in a second some examples. Workflow extensions or client services. So I'll give an example of asset providers that I was talking about. So you could have 3D models. Like a good example of that is Sketchfab. It's one of our partners. Sketchfab, which is one of the biggest repositories of 3D models, made those models available through Omniverse, and they did that through an extension. I'll show you in a second how easy it is to do that. Characters and animations. We know that these virtual worlds are going to be animated by digital humans and avatars. And those need to be animated as well. And maybe you have a tracking system to allow for that. And you have the 3D models and the animations. You can also bake that into Omniverse. And then there is materials as well. We have a great way to make realistically looking materials in Omniverse, which is called MDL. And if you have materials, you can integrate your features and distribute your materials as well within Omniverse. Apps and API providers. I was talking about that before. Let's say that you have an apps or software that allows for manipulation of data or manipulation of 3D scenes. Or maybe you have an engineering tool and you want to plug that into Omniverse. You can do that. Like a good example of that is Maya. It's another app that runs on your PC on premise, but you can connect that to Omniverse. Or you have an API, as I was saying before. You want to connect your API or service to Omniverse. Let's say that you have a file management system, or you have an asset management system, or maybe you have a procedural asset generation mechanism. You can take all these things and plug that into Omniverse. And how cool would it be if you have, let's say, a procedural generation of, I don't know, a chair, and that's what your product is. And you're the best at procedurally generating chairs. And you can plug that into Omniverse, and then you can drag and drop your procedurally generated chairs into Omniverse. I'm using chairs because I already spoke with a variety of startups that are doing 3D furniture. That's their core business, and they have a system to deploy those furnitures into virtual worlds. That's a perfect example of something that works well with Omniverse. Or you have a file management system or a data management system, and you want to allow digital twins to be controlled through your data management system. You can do that. Or maybe you're into IoT and you have a product and you want to allow a simulation of that product or controlling that product or sensor through Omniverse and allow your other users to capture that data and use it in their simulations. So, for example, we have a great developer, Xiaoming. He created this hue lights control extension that simulates how a hue light works in Omniverse, which has, again, a ray trace based engine. So it gets a photorealistic version of that. And then the same settings are applied to the real hue camera. And if the image that you see here is basically indistinguishable from the real scene that you would have. So again, apps and providers, there is a huge opportunity for this. I would say that, probably 90% of the partners that I'm talking to belong into this bucket. Then there is workflow tool creators. This is very common in 3D assets management tools or apps like, for example, Unity or Unreal or Maya or Blender. Blender, for example, is a great community of plugin creators. And these workflow plugins or extensions are things like maybe procedurally generate a set of assets that I need in the scene. Like we have this, for example, SyncTwin is one of our partners, and they have this tool called the flow rack generator. And what the flow rack generator does is you configure it, and then it generates this perfectly rendered flow rack, which is then used in facilities and facility centers. And then it's perfectly simulated, it's already rigged, and you can use it in your simulation. And they created a tool, this small panel that you see here. You just click a button and it deploys the flow rack into you. Or you have scene manipulator extensions, or a tool maybe to align different objects in your scene. All of these are very useful, and we have many developers that are creating this type of tools. And then there is what we call system integrators. Again, and I think this might resonate with you guys from Deltatre. If you have, again, maybe you're working for a client and they have a workflow that requires to plug into these virtual worlds. Maybe you like a good example of this is Smart Cow is a company that we work with. They just released an extension that allows to generate license plates attached to a car, because what they're doing is they're creating synthetic data, images that they will then feed to their system, and then they have an AI that wants to be able to recognize license plates, and they're doing that by generating all this data through Omniverse. Or again, maybe
if someone is interested in this type of synthetic data, can watch our Fireside Chat with a Smart Cow. So in the channel,
they did a demo as well of the extension, right? Yes,
and an amazing demo.
It's a great tool. It's out now, by the way, since last week, so anyone can go and download it and play with it. It's great. I strongly recommend it. And again, so I think that's a great example. Is if you have a use case and one of our clients tries to solve a problem, you can use Omniverse to plug into that flow and maybe create an extension or a set of extensions that solve that problem. So I'll do a quick pause here, and before we jump into the next section, which is how do we actually make these connections? How do we actually make these extensions?
Before start with this, I wanted to ask Gianni. Sorry, Mario. Could you jump to the previous slide?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Gianni, I believe that synthetic data generation and digital twin for our business could be something to explore.
Yes, since we started discussing with Marco about the use cases, also we start investigating also some of statistical generation that can be potentially of very useful for our use scenario in AI machine learning. We work in the sports sector, so you can easily imagine what is kind of environments or scenario we can build upon. And I think that there's a lot of space to investigate and explore. And I think that is not as easy as it seems, but it will require a little bit of work on getting used to all this stuff together, how it can all be integrated, how to properly implement extension. I think I've seen some of the tutorials, but then Mario will show us how it is easy to getting started on building an extension. But then probably we will some work on how to verticalize it, how to industrialize it, how we can share the code between multiple developers. So a little bit understanding how to do it, but I think it's very promising.
Amazing, and that's a perfect segue into the next section, which is how to get started with making Omniverse connections. So I want to start from the first case that we talked about, which is the connector, which is when you have a third-party software and you want to be able to edit 3D scenes in real time and connect to Omniverse and other tools that might be editing that scene. That is done again through a connector. A connector is a small piece of software. You can download a sample directly from Omniverse Exchange and the Omniverse Launcher, which is the basic launcher that you get when you install Omniverse. So you click this button, you add the connect sample, and we have two samples. We have samples for C++ and Python. And you can look at all the code, and there are a lot of snippets and boilerplate piece of code that you can take and use in your connector. And it's actually very easy to get started. Just establish a connection and edit a scene. It's very easy. Of course, all is reasoning in USD. So all your models and the changes that you need to apply to the scene, you're working with a USD scene. But we have a lot of documentation on it. Don't worry, we will share this presentation. There are a lot of links, and on our NVIDIA documentation page, there is a lot of material. And then again, next step is literally like you can run this through a console, and you can just see if the connection is happening. You can easily deploy that. Like the first proof of concept, it takes a few minutes to get going, and then it's about how you do the deeper integration with your product and your 3D scenes and data straight into Omniverse. The next one is the extension, and I have a feeling that the vast majority of you is likely going to actually build an extension, because extensions allows to connect to third-party services, to manipulate scenes, allows you to do a lot of different cool things. It's very easy to make an extension. If we have a few minutes afterwards, I also prepared a short demonstration of that. Like I can show you kind of live almost what that looks like. But it's basically 3 steps. If you want to make your first extension, you just go to start a new project by going to the extension tab in Omniverse. There is this green plus button. You click on it, click new extension project, template project, and this will automatically open up Visual Studio Code. You need to have VS Code, of course, installed. And it's already, the project is already configured for you, is already kickstarted for you. It's also GitHub friendly, so you can publish it to GitHub straight away if you want. It's Git friendly. And it's Python code, so you can easily go and change the extension, and I will show you how easy it is. And then the cool thing is that Omniverse is, again, it's a real-time environment. And Kit, which is, again, our SDK, is basically doing hot loading. So every time you're editing something in code and saving, the immediate change is happening straight away into your extension. So you can literally debug your extension straight away without having to create a binary. There's no concept of binary here. It's Python code being interpreted by Kit, basically. It's very, very easy to get started.
A question: can I build extension just in Python, or also can I build extension with C++ like the connectors?
So great question, Gianni. Right now, as of today, you can do it in Python. However, we already announced publicly that with the next version of Kit, there is going to be a C++ version as well.
But also for the C++ version, there is the outloading.
It should work as the Python extension as well. And then still talking about extensions, but zeroing in on if you have assets. Actually, we did a lot of the work for you in the sense that we created an asset provider search extension that allows you to very easily connect to your asset provider system. If you have, let's say, a library of 3D models, and you can connect your service quickly to Omniverse through this extension, and your assets will show up into Omniverse through our asset search. So it's a great way to surface your content. And the question that I get all the time from asset providers is, what if I want to sell my assets and not provide them for free? Well, we have that feature covered as well, in the sense that you can expose all of your assets, and you can require users to, for example, register an account or to have an account with your service. This is the example with Sketchfab, for example. If I'm trying to add a Sketchfab model, the first thing that he asks is, well, do you have a Sketchfab account? Please add it in. And then from there, if it's a paid asset, you are redirected to the page or landing page where the user can transact, purchase the asset, and then it's made available. So all of that is kind of already plugged in. One thing that I want to specify is that NVIDIA doesn't take any rev share right now of anything. Like, so if you're selling your assets,
but for example, I built an extension. It's the same like the assets. NVIDIA take nothing. No.
Oh yeah,
revenue,
it's the same for connectors. It's the same for extensions. There is no as of right now. There is no concept of monetization baked in within Omniverse. It's entirely up to you how you want to monetize your product. So if one thing that we do, for example, with extensions developers is they build the extension, then they publish the extension on their website, on their server, and from Exchange we point to their website so they can gate access to the extension. The extension can be behind the paywall, for example. You're like, oh, you want to use our extension, you have to subscribe to this service for, I don't know, $100 a month or $10,000 a month, depends on what your
there
product
is also a sort of marketplace already available. For example,
yes, there is, and that's exactly the next chapter, which is how do users discover content for Omniverse? Like all these extensions, where do they live? How can I publish my extension? So again, we have a lot of partners, software partners, and also adopters of Omniverse, and we would like to welcome you into this enormously growing ecosystem of partners. So we want to be able for you to expose your content in the right way as well. So we do have at Omniverse well, if you want to call it a marketplace, it's also a catalog of content, which is called Exchange. Exchange allows users of Omniverse to discover connectors, content, so assets and extensions, and even all the apps like Omniverse Create or Omniverse Code. Everything is discovered and installed through Exchange. So you can, as a developer, you can build your extension, then you can work with us to publish your extension on Exchange, and you will get a dedicated page as well with all the details about your extension, how users can use it, what it is about. And as you can see here, there is a button on top that says external link. So in this case, we are pointing the user to go and discover this extension on the partner's website. And then it's entirely up to the partner how they want to onboard their users. We just need to make sure that the extension works fine. We have a QA process for that. But it's their customers and they want to onboard them, and that's a great way to increase discoverability. So that's an option. And once the extension is installed, the extension is made then available for activation through the extension manager. So I want to say another thing, which is if instead you want to release your extension for the community, so let's say they want to release your extension as open source, you can also do that. And we do have a featured called community that you can see here. There are two tabs, there's NVIDIA and community. And by releasing your extension on GitHub and just applying a couple of tags to it, you will automatically show up into the community tab. So users can directly go and activate your extension. It's just that we don't verify those connections. We don't, because those are open source and published by the community, right? So those are what we call unverified connections. But anyone can make it. Like you can publish it today and it will show up in the extension manager. When it comes to Exchange, that's a more curated experience. That's when we want to make sure that we give visibility to our partners and to developers, and that's why there is a little bit more process involved. But once that is done, you have your tile, you have your description page, and more users can go and discover and become part of and start using your extension or connector or whatever you're making up.
We missed
extension. Yeah, there is a question. Yeah, related to
we missed this one.
Oh, Nando, is there documentation of all your extensions? So when it comes to the connectors, there is documentation on our NVIDIA portal. Most of the time, however, since the extension, in particular the third-party extensions, are made by third-party developers, it's usually with them that you would find their documentation or how to use it, and they might provide link on their website on how to integrate their features or use it. Like again, if you then you can download it from them and install it, and it's part of Omniverse. But the documentation for the third-party extension usually sits with the developer. Great. So literally I have my last slide, which is next steps. So I just wanted to, we covered a lot of ground today. So I just wanted to, give you a few coordinates about, what to do next. So the first thing is, if you never used Omniverse, go and download Omniverse. Again, it's free. Go to nvidia.com/Omniverse. And if you want to create extensions, my advice is to install and open Omniverse Code, which again is the best reference application to start creating extensions. Then next step is build your proof of concept, build your MVP. My recommendation is to choose one of these. You could do more. You could do all of them if you want to, but think about what is your business model and how you could plug into Omniverse, and what do you want to make available of your product through Omniverse. So you could build an extension. Again, we just saw how to do it. We also have a video on YouTube, how to build an extension in 10 minutes. I will try to beat that video and show you how to make an extension in 3 minutes. I have a video that I can show you that, but it's a great example of how to get started. You will see it's very, very easy. And then use code to build a proof of concept, integrate with your service. And then you will have a small, nutshell product, right? Or a connector. If you have a third-party application that want to manipulate scene and become part of this, concurrent editing mechanism that Omniverse allows, build a connector. You need, of course, to work in USD. As I said before, download the connect sample, start playing with it, and start to connect to Omniverse Nucleus and change the scene. If you have an asset library, again, this is actually probably the easiest of the three. You just need to verify that you have actually USD models that work fine. You can use a tool that is called US View that we make available through Exchange as well, that make sure that your USD file is all good. And then you can build your proof of concept. You can connect to your library of assets and plug it into Omniverse. And then the next step is once you have a proof of concept, you might want to reach out to us. So I added my here we go, my nickname here, Marius the one is on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. and just reach out to us, and more than happy to guide you through the next step. So as soon as you have a proof of concept, something that you want to integrate with Omniverse, I'm sure that by then you will have a lot of questions, and we can help you with that. So reach out to us, and we want to make sure that we allow you to publish your extension and connector to Omniverse. Instead, if you want to release your extension open source and you just want to release it to all the users, that's even super easy. You don't even have to contact us. Just publish it on GitHub. There are tutorials on our page. You just need to add a couple of specific tags and topics to your GitHub project. One of these topics is basically you have to do two things. Well, the topic is called Omniverse extensions, Omniverse Kit extensions as a topic to GitHub, and then you have to create a release of your GitHub project, and by then your project will become discoverable on Omniverse. But that is, again, if you want to release it as open source and as an unverified extension, it's an option. Otherwise, reach out to us, and we're always happy to work with more partners. It's a new world, and we want everyone to become part of it. So our doors open.
Mario, there is some sort of program to access to example codes.
Yes,
documentation,
absolutely. So,
tutorials.
First step, I would recommend to download this presentation. If you scan this QR code or follow this short link, you get access to all these slides. You can rewatch them, and all these links are all working links, so you can actually use them to connect. Also, NVIDIA has the NVIDIA developer programs. So there are many things that we're doing. We have more than 3.5 million developers, more than 150 SDKs. We give early access to a lot of our programs. We have a wealth of on-demand videos. A lot of those are on YouTube, but we have also the ones that are, as part of our developer program. And way more. DevZone forums. We have Inception as well, which is a great opportunity for startups. We have more than 12,000 startups as part of Inception. And it's an acceleration program for startups. So we give you cloud credits, technical guidance, discounts for tech, training credits, and way more. So if you have a startup, you should be in Inception. So please reach out and check out Inception. We have DLI, the Deep Learning Institute, which provides a lot of trainings on NVIDIA technology and way more. And then our higher education and research program with more than 600 projects per year. So again, if you want to become part of this, there is another QR code here. I will, you can just scan it. There is the short link here as well. Maybe we can post it in the chat as well. Yep. For others to check out. And again, it's a great opportunity. It just takes a few clicks, become part of our community, and you're more than welcome. We want more and more devs to play with us in our tech.
Yeah,
so
we confirm it's an interesting program. We follow a lot of DLIs that is available. Also, if you miss a GTC session, you can watch it. It has been very interesting in all of the topics and many more others, AI related stuff. And yeah, if you are interested in developing NVIDIA components or stuff or working with it, developer program is the way to go.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What to say about the DLI? I followed 4 or 5 DLIs, and I can confirm that the quality of the quality is very, very high, and I will suggest to follow. Great resources, don't miss. Anyway, Nando are asking if Deltatre is a part of NVIDIA. No. We are a different company.
We're just very good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work a lot with NVIDIA technologies, from devices to software solution, AI frameworks, and so on. And we are happy to discuss with real-world scenario. If you also follow other our initiative, we sometimes explain NVIDIA components and how to build stuff with NVIDIA devices.
I'll maybe go back as we speak. I'll go back to the slides on Omniverse and leave the link as well, so everyone can check out.
Okay. Mario, I will edit the description of the stream so that
awesome.
Guys easily can click and download everything from the presentation and eventually to subscribe the NVIDIA Developer Program.
Amazing. Thank you, Tino.
You're welcome. Anyway, if there
Wonderful.
are no more questions, what to say? Thank you, Mario. I hope to invite you soon for
100%. Oh, maybe I don't know if we have time. I know we are a little bit over
I will.
time. I know we have the short
I wanted to
video
show.
as well.
Yeah. Starting.
All right. So now I will do a quick demo of how to create an extension. It's very easy. You need to go. We are inside Code, the latest version. You need to go to extensions, and this is the extension manager. Allows you to turn on and off extensions. And you see there is a plus button here. You just click the plus button, click on new extension template project. We need to select a folder. I would like this folder. Then we call it kit xts, let's say test project. Great. Click OK. And then we need to give the extension name. Let's say we call company hello worlds. And what it does is that it immediately creates a new extension and opens the code directly in VS Code as well. So the extension is here and is already showed up here, this window here. What it does is that the basic number is empty, and I can just add by clicking a button the count, and then I can reset to empty. So very, very basic. And if we go back and open VS Code, we can open actually the code itself, and we can go to company, extension, and here is the very basic code of the extension. As you can see, we have a my extension, and then we have all the code that defines the interface as well. So we can then change this code and see the change immediately reflected in the extension. So let's say that we want to increment by 5 and not just by 1. We just do this, we save, and then when we go back to the extension, we click add. As you can see, it's already changed. And we can directly impact also the size of the extension. We could do, for example, if we do width 100, and we save, you can see the extension is immediately reduced in size. So again, it's very, very easy to go and change the extension, and the cool thing is that it's done immediately in real time. Is hot loaded directly into Omniverse. And you can then go and change and create your own extensions and connect to your services and connect to APIs and do whatever you want with your extension. And the extension itself, again, is a panel, so I can just take and I can put it up here, and I have now it's part of my interface. I have my window, my extension, straight in, and I could do something with it. So again, very, very basic, very, very simple, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what it can be done. And that's it. Again, this
Yeah.
one was very, very basic. Again, I think this was the record. We have the version in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The version in 10 minutes also shows you how to, for example, click a button and deploy a 3D model in the scene and then change it and change the shape, which is also incredibly easy. So it can show you how to actually interact with the 3D scene. But I wanted to give you just a quick glimpse of what's possible, and you could hot load data into it. We're seeing a lot of different implementations, a lot of different features. So yeah, I would say sky's the limit on what's possible.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you, Mario.
Well, thank you, Mario. Guys. No, has been great being here. I don't know if there are more questions or anything.
Don't worry. If someone asks for something after this live, I will ping you for an answer.
Please let me know. And again, connect with me.
Let us know if you want other contents like this one. I think that we will record another demo, and because John and I want to
experiment a little bit. Yeah, more details. Yeah.
Okay, and remember, Mario, I wanted to play
with
your Omniverse.
Take your extension and play with it in VR and XR 100%.
There is only a little issue that the minimum requirement is very, very high. So I can play with it only in Office, but anyway, it's amazing.
You can steal. Those are like the recommended requirements. You can steal probably if you have a lower end. You need an RTX. Like for XR, what I'm saying is I think I played with it with the minimum RTX requirement, which is a 2060, and it was still, maybe you won't have all the photorealistic RTX rendering happening because it's very demanding. But for some decent VR manipulation, it still works. So you can try that.
Okay, guys.
Great.
Thank you so much
again.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.